all our speakers, and thank you so much for everyone who has joined us for this very event. As we all know, we are here to host the Global Schools program, which is a professional development program for the advocates, teachers, which I believe every one of us are. And we have our mentors here that are going to be telling us about their work, and believe that their stories and their work will inspire us to do more in our schools and our locations. So I will go to the next slide where we're going to see the topic that we have for today, which everybody has seen on the Facebook group. So in the next slide, you see that the program, it's a Global School Advocates Development webinar. And okay, I think the slide I changed a bit. Okay, so the next slide, please. Let's see. Okay, yes. Okay, so we already know who global schools are. That's why we're in the Global Schools program. So I won't be saying so much about that. We know the work that we are doing in global schools. I'll focus on the SDG 4 and the ESD. In the next slide, I'll go straight to introduce our speakers. And as we know, some of them are already our mentors. We have Marcella, Simon, and Marty. So they're going to be introducing themselves more better. Marcella is from the Argentina. Simon, Kenya, but right now he's in Sweden. Then we have Marty also. The next slide, just a bit of their profile. They're going to do all of that later, so I don't spend so much time doing that. But they have been global schools advocates before, like you, and they are now mentors, and they'll be sharing their stories even in the course of their presentation. So not to take too much of our time, I would go straight to the next slide where we have Simon's profile also. If you can take a look at it or a snapshot of it. I don't want to spend too much time talking about this, but this is Simon too. Like I said, he's presently in Sweden, as you can see there, and in one of the universities they're doing his master's. Then we have his work in Kenya. And the next person, Martin. Yes, okay. So she's also been a global school advocate before, and also presently now a mentor from Austria. And you can see that she has involved in a lot of projects, even in her profile, Austria Green Lab, Eco School International, and so many other works that she has done. The next slide, still a bit of our works. Then straight, I think I'm going to stop here now and hand over to them. I don't know if I was able to do justice to all of their profile, but basically I want them to speak for themselves and have enough time to interact with you. So I'm going to hand over to the first speaker right now. She's going to be telling us about our work, about herself, and hopefully, as expected, that this will inspire you to know how to kind of do more work in your school. And probably if you have questions, just keep them coming on the chat box. Be free to ask your questions. And by the end of their presentation, they are going to give us answers or try to give us answers to those questions. So I'll hand over to the first speaker now.
So just give me one moment to switch slides to the first speaker's slide.
Oh, okay, sorry about it.
So all the speakers today were asked to talk broadly about elementary education and early childhood education and exactly what they have been doing in their school. So we can't wait to get started.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Amanda. Shall I start now?
Yes, over to you, Marty.
Okay, thank you very much. Welcome to this webinar. My name is Marty Hendricks. I am located in Vienna, Austria, and I am very happy to be here with you, sharing the experiences that has been happening through our journey to achieve education for sustainable development in our school, that in the school that I work, which is the Vienna International School. Next one, please. One of the main recommendations that I can say because of the experience that I had at school is the linking of the SDGs into the school curricula is really very important. And for doing that, it is relevant to get to know what you already have in your curricula. Identify those elements in your curricula that could connect to the SDGs, not all of them at the same time, and ideally you do it in a progressive way. We know that to connect, we have to try that it connects not only between units in a class, but also over the years of education and between the subjects that the students study. It is actually about linking these lessons. And this vertical alignment aims for the students to learn these skills, and they have to start as a foundation in the early years. And then it goes, and it's being reinforced later by the teachers through the years of the study of the students. The next one, please. Now, how to create this vertical alignment? Integrating the global goals in the students' investigation and projects is one very important step that we have to do. So not only through the curricula in which the students are supported and guided to go through all the different elements that can be in a unit of inquiry like this one that I am presenting here, but also through the investigations and projects that are related to them. For example, this is just one example, one unit of inquiry about sharing the planet, and in which the Sustainable Development Goals were integrated in the unit. There were targets that were selected, and it includes, of course, the soil, how it functions, and ecosystem services, because this unit specifically was why soil plays an important role in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. And then all these goals are aligned or connected to every single session or a learning process of the students. In this way, also, you can see that we take some learning gain in grade 1, like for the clean water and sanitation. And the students are always presented with the global goals for children. So they are invited. We don't tell them now, you are going to learn this goal, but they are invited to see which goal do you think it connects to what you are actually learning now. And in this way, it's much more enriching because the students find out that they can connect to many, not to one. And then the discussions with the teachers later on can help us figure out how they make these connections and how they really come very close to what the aims of the goals are. And this is very important. So in my case, the alignment of the curricula, of the science curricula, that it was for me facilitated, it was fantastic because I could see all the different goals connecting. Maybe this goal number 3 connects actually through the whole primary school, but then it connects again in grade 7 and it connects again in grade 9. And then it expands to other connectivities in grade 12. So it is very important to really have a very thorough look at the program, connect the SDGs, and then try to implement them. Next one, please. So it is a very important experience that I can share also with you. Through this learning, we are again in the same unit of inquiry. Through this learning, we integrate also the school community and invite the parents to collaborate with the students' learning process. So that means the teachers invite the parents, and then together they can make like a project that is related to the global goal and especially to the unit that we are actually having. And in this way, this collaboration make this learning stronger because it's started in the school, taken into at home, and then hopefully also implemented in the nearby community. The next one, please. One very, very important recommendation that I can, from experience that I can share with you, is that we should be facilitators. So as advocates, we should try to encourage our colleagues to integrate these SDGs in their lessons and classroom experiences, but sometimes they don't know how to do it. So the first thing is to develop the awareness of the global goals already at an early age. And for that, as a coordinator of the SDGs and our global school program in the school, I try to go once a year to all the classrooms and try to make a very simple age-specific presentation. In this case, are children 6 years old. And then we start talking about the problems of the world. And the kids start recognizing all the global goals and how they later will be connected during the unit that they are working. And it facilitates also our colleagues, the ones who may be a little bit scared of it, maybe too much, or they don't know how to do it. It facilitates for them to really get into it. And then they start looking for opportunities and they can ask you, what will you do in this case? And then that is fantastic because it's a very informal way of doing a little workshop, sometimes even private workshops, because they really ask you for the next level and the next step and what will you do? And this is fantastic. So I truly recommend you always, instead of pressing and instead of pushing, just invite, and just your job is go in there and say, look, it is this. And then slowly they get into this involvement. And immediately after some time, it turns into a culture at your school. The next one, please. It is very, very relevant to celebrate action days. And we do that at school at least 4 times, including different global action days. And because they have been so powerful and we have noticed the impact that these have done into our community, we have changed them now to global action weeks. So a week of learning in which we promote this reflection of this learning through the school and then happening through the integration of the SDGs in this approach. So that means the teachers are invited to provide us with lessons, activities, or actions that the students have been doing. And then through different boards, we go one board for one of the SDGs. We can have work from early learning together with work from grade 7 and grade 12. And it all focuses on this development of the learning, how they actually is integrated. So we can see that in the Global Action Days, but also we celebrate very important and relevant celebrations in the world, like Peace Day, in which also we integrate our global goal in there. So the students get an idea why it is so important. And for that is only our global goal for the Peace Day. The next one, please. It is very important, as I said, also during these global days or global learning weeks, that we engage our students in informal learning through different settings that are visible to all school students and contain information that is age-specific, that is factual, and it is interesting to them. It is also very important to involve the school leadership during this process of learning, and the community to take part on this relevant learning, which by not being a part of the curricula, let's say this is the hidden curricula that we have at BIS, goes parallel to the curricula, but we can follow up. And we can see that this was, for example, a climate action week, in which the students were able to learn about biodiversity, about energy, about water, about climate science. And then, of course, the global goals are always present. And because they are present, the children start connecting them. We try to play the game, and then we notice that they found their own way of playing the game by going to the boards and saying, oh, that board connects to this goal. And that was with the little children. The young ones, as you can see here, they are in grade 3, grade 5, and grade 3, grade 5, and grade 4. And they are having this time. And why it's important to involve the leadership? It is because you will need to have the children being released from regular lessons and invite the classrooms to be part of this learning. And because it is supported by the leadership, the teachers come with the classes, and then when they come with the classes, the kids spread into the whole area where we have these displays, and they just engage in learning. Some students like to take notes, some students don't like to take notes, but they engage in that and then later reflect in the classrooms through the different discussions that the teachers then are led in there. And this is happening now more and more. We are waiting for the next one in 2 weeks' time, which is also going to be a big one. And it is part of our, let's say, kind of our agenda now in the school now. The next one, please. There is also one special day in which we participate in the world's largest lesson, and that is students. Now is the turn of the students to give us their work, to provide us with all the learning that they think they should be sharing or they would like to be sharing within the students' community. And then they are the ones who are teaching the other students. It could be secondary students teaching primary students, or the other way around. And in this way, all this learning happens from children or from students to students. Of course, there is a strategical plan in which the classrooms have to book a period for taking the classrooms downstairs at the place where we have all the displays, and the students are then giving the lessons. So it's a whole school approach, which has proven to be very, very, very rewarding for the learning of the students regarding our sustainability future. And always the SDGs are integrated. And as I said before, this is really a joy to see them connect these SDGs by themselves. The next one, please. Thank you very much. We have a motto at school after 2 years of working hard, and this motto is awareness and understanding. So at the beginning, the first 2 years was awareness. The next 2 years was gaining this understanding, going into a really deeper level of learning. And then now we go into what is the action part. So therefore, we have this awareness and understanding leads to meaningful actions. And even our young students are now participating with their parents, because in this case, we allow the students to, let's say, we facilitate the students these participations like the Friday for Future marches, but the younger ones have to be accompanied by their parents. So this is fantastic, because it turns now not only as a student thing, but as a family kind of awareness, which is fantastic also, because the more they get engaged into these things, the more they are also wanting our school to continue going deeper and deeper into this learning, which is so relevant for the future of their children and our world. The next one, please. So the last thing that I would like to share with you is that after so many years of being in the school and trying and supporting and learning and building, the key to achieve an education for sustainable development, whole school integration, is collaboration. And a collaboration that is between the students, between the teachers and the students, between colleagues, between parents and teachers, between parents and children, between the community nearby as well. We also invite nearby schools to come and celebrate with us some of the Global Action Days. Unfortunately, due to COVID, we all have been put aside these gatherings, and we are trying now to reach out again and see how we can connect to our community. And by doing this, we also learn that together we can achieve changes in the lifestyles and act upon the relevant global issues that are putting our world into a very unstable situation. But if we all work together, and we do have a plan, the plan are the SDGs, and if we all work together towards achieving them, we definitely will be learning a lot in that process, but achieving our goals, hopefully for the next generations to thrive in a healthy and safe and sustainable environment. Thank you very much for your attention. The only thing I want just to tell you, there is something that I didn't add in here, but I wanted just to share with you. This is the element for, or the key for, successful as organization, as part of the curricula, as part of the school mission statement. But for the students, the main element is to integrate fun. You need to try to avoid this eco-anxiety that is growing more and more and more. And you need to be leading by example to your students. That is something I really highly recommend you, because it's very important to have a person who then they can count on. Even if they come to me to save a poor bird that is dying out, I will never let them down. You can do it, and you can achieve this by just working together. Now, yes, thank you very much for your time, and thank you, Amanda, for the slides.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that awesome presentation. If you have your questions, again, please do type them on the chat box. We'll have a time where a section where we answer these questions, and you get the answers to your questions. So we have the next speaker coming up now, in person of Marcela. She's speaking from Argentina. Will you go ahead, Marcela? Thank you so much.
Okay, hello to you all. I'm very pleased to be here with you all this morning for me, and whatever it is for you in other parts of the world. I will be sharing my slides, and I'm really amazed at all the things that Marti has been able to achieve in all this time. But now I'm going to move you all to a different reality. Marti comes from a very developed country, of course. I come from Argentina. My situation is completely different from the one she has presented. And that's why I want to share it with you all this morning for me. So I'm Marcela Villan, as Emmanuel well said. And I have been a qualified teacher of English here in Argentina for more than 30 years working in a classroom. This is me. This is my LinkedIn banner. Yeah, and you can see that it's full of different icons, different logos, yeah, different connections that I have made throughout my teaching career, trying to connect myself to the world. Something I really found have a big pride on. So I'm going to here today to tell you about my journeys to and with the SDGs, right? This is my school. It's located in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Our first language, of course, is Spanish. Our mother tongue is Spanish, but this school is bilingual. We have the 3 levels of education. It's called modern school, and the 3 levels of education are kindergarten from 2 to 5 years old, primary from 6 to 11, and secondary from 12 to 17. And it's a school that holds approximately 1,500 students. Our, let's say, main motto is that knowledge is freedom, right? And that is what we work on. We are part of the Project Zero Teaching for Understanding, let's say, methodology, and we follow that. Yes, as you can see here, we have Argentina in the world, just in case you don't know where exactly it's located, yeah? So it all started like this. In the year 2000, I had already been working at schools for more than 10 years. I had already been a bilingual school head in another school I was working on. And I always felt that there was something missing in all our English classes here in my country. In the year 2004, I started working at this school, modern school, at the secondary level, with secondary students teaching environmental education. For me, it was a big challenge at the time, as we teachers of English here in Argentina are trained to teach English, right? To teach all the English content that you can think of, reported speech, conditional sentences, passive voice, but we are not trained to teach environmental education. So that was a very big challenge for me, because I had to start training myself. It was a subject that I loved. It was a subject that I liked very much. So I found it very easy, but I had to train myself for a long time. Now I can say that I am an expert on environmental education, but at the time it was a big issue. trying to take all this to my classrooms, I had to find a way to do it with my adolescent students, trying to motivate them to work for the environment, to work for all these issues that are affecting the world nowadays. At that moment, we did not have the global goals, we had the millennium goals. And so I started working with them, and they paved the way very easily to enter all these topics into my lessons. In the year 2010, I was made head of the, let's say, English primary section. And that's when I said, here I have to do much more than what I think I can do, because that was my opportunity to start taking all the things that I had into my head into reality. As head of the primary level, I worked from the years 2010 to the year 2020, just before pandemic times, when pandemic was starting here. And I really knew that I had to make a difference. I wanted to make a difference in the way that all the curricula was, let's say, established at school. I found it easy because as head of the English department, I was able to make my own changes. You know that here in Argentina, we have a national curricula that we all need to follow, that all schools need to follow. But as we are a bilingual school, the English part has a different perspective. And that is where I was able to make all the necessary changes to introduce all the things that I wanted to introduce into my lessons. As I told you before, the SDGs were not already into action, but we had the Millennium Goals. And I knew that I need to globalize my lessons, because my students, sooner or later, all the students in the primary section were going to become global citizens. Right? Globalization was an issue that was already, let's say, taking place, and at very rapid steps, yeah, very quickly. So I really knew that I had to globalize my lessons. And what I did first was to change the curriculum. I started adding into the English lessons global challenges, working on global topics, right? Leaving content aside, that is to say, the content that we generally teach in English lessons, call it tenses, call it reported speech, call it whatever you want to call it. But I started adding global challenges, globalizing the content. And I will tell you how in a minute. And I also knew that I had to start, let's say, working on thinking skills, another very important issue that was coming into fashion at the time, that we are talking about the year 2010, Argentina, developing country. For all this, there is something very important that Marty mentioned a few minutes ago. I had to become a facilitator, because teachers, right, were not trained to do this the same way I had not been trained to do what I had done before. So I started training myself on how to teach teachers. Yeah, this professional development that I carried out was essential, yeah, for me to work as a wonderful or as a great head for the primary section. I needed to train myself as well. All this training that I did helped me to teach teachers how they had to do their job, right? There were no webinars at the time. We were not working with so much technology. So I created meetings at school, right? I worked with them at different moments in the school, yeah, in breaks, or let's say in some meetings, some teachers meetings that we have along the year, trying to tell them what they needed to do in their lessons. And I basically included 3 topics at that time. This was the year 2010. Water, culture, yeah, and atmosphere. And without knowing in the year 2020, without knowing our dear SDGs, I was working with SDGs number 6, SDG number 4, education, and SDG number 13, 14, and 15. So how did I do this? I opened the classroom doors to the world. And how did I do this? By introducing global content, as I told you. I told teachers that when they were working with, for example, animals and biodiversity, they had to include not only the national, biodiversity, but also the biodiversity around the world. They had to start teaching students at a very early age, because this was primary school, 6 years old. They had to start teaching them animals around the world, how they lived around the world, culture around the world, how people lived around the world, not only talking about food, our national food, but also talking about food around the world, not only talking about what was happening here in Argentina, but also teaching them what was happening around the world. I had a very important help. At that moment, my school was introducing technology into our classrooms. Yeah, and we had some, let's say, wonderful material through YouTube and through different websites that we were able to visit at that time. As from the year 2015, the SDGs were the solution. Yeah, the SDGs helped me to go further, right, and helped me to form the perfect framework to all my lessons, right? And I became a Teach SDGs ambassador, the same as Marti, and that was wonderful. That was a great help. I started getting in contact with lots of materials, and so I started helping my teachers more and more. We were able to get into our lessons more and more knowledge into the SDGs. This, for example, is a way in which I started working, or I started teachers getting into contact with all these topics. First of all, these two websites, which were a great help, www.globalgoals.org, with all the material that they have. Well, World's Largest Lesson, also another big help. Films, right? For example, the Lorax talking so much about environmental issues. And then I got into contact with the ARC Academy, a great publishing company in India. I became a global educator. I started getting into contact with more and more teachers around the world. Most of the teachers here at this moment in this webinar are my friends, okay, my global friends, and I really love that. And I got ideas from all of you around the world to take into my lessons. ARC Academy, for example, this publishing company in India, have wonderful work booklets that are connected with the SDGs. At this moment, they have a wonderful platform, and they started giving me lots of ideas to take to my lessons. For example, have a look at these activities for little kids. This is wonderful. Yeah, counting the water droplets that you have there. But then at the same time, once they have done this activity, right, and by that you are teaching numbers, you are teaching mathematics, right, telling them what each water drop means around the world. Yeah, for example, this working on this wonderful picture and teaching about buildings and teaching about shops around the world, yeah, and teaching about shops in your neighborhood, adding that, yes, to see what kind of sustainable concepts are in, let's say, in this picture, are shown in that picture, right? Have a look at this one. Rivers have fresh water that we can use for drinking. Look at the picture of a river given below. And it says, in how many ways do you see the river is getting dirty and polluted, getting into water sanitation? Yeah. So, I mean, trying to introduce activities that were leading, let's say, to all our global goals. And of course, the Sustainable Development Goals created the perfect framework. So we started introducing them from 6 years old, let's say, from a very early age. Now, at this moment, we are carrying a continuum. That is to say, we start from kindergarten, right? And we try to follow them till secondary education. But at that moment, we were just beginning, right? Remember that I'm telling you, it was the year 2015, 2016, 2017. We were just beginning with all this. And this is the way we started. Now, the global goals, and once I became a global school advocate, this all became much simpler, right? Because I mean, I became the referent of all this into the school. Now at this moment, I'm only working at the secondary level, and I became the referent of the, let's say, environmental sciences. And as that, I have been able to work with all these through the curriculum from kindergarten to secondary school. At this moment, I am making my secondary students become solutionaries of the world, creating projects in which they teach the little kids at the primary level and at the kindergarten level. So how do I work with them? How do I work with the SDGs in my secondary level now? Through project-based learning. And through project-based learning, I work with 4 different kinds of thinking: critical thinking, systems thinking, strategic thinking, and creative thinking. And as I have just told you, I am making solutionaries out of my adolescent students. They create the projects that then we will carry out all along the school, and that then we will take to our primary students and to our, and then we take to our kindergarten students. By critical thinking, by critical thinking, I try to make our students discern information, right? Looking for global perspectives, looking for what is happening around the world with the very important SDGs that we take into the classrooms. Systems thinking, I make them think about how they can connect, right? Let's say the global issues, the global goals with the different levels, right? Environmental level, economic level, and equity, social issue. So they try to think how they can connect the goal to the different stages and how they can interrelate all this. By strategic thinking, I make them create an outcome, a solution, and in that way they are applying their creative thinking. And once they are creating their solution, they create the project that our little kids are going to work on. And then they take all that, they become the teachers. They become the facilitators of this project, and they take these, let's say, projects into the next levels, into the other levels of education at school. These are some of the projects and some of the information that they work on and how they work on. We create a driving question, and then we go to the global perspectives. Then we go to the national and the local perspectives, and then we see what can be done at the local level. Because I always tell them that small actions at the local level multiplied by a lot of people are going to create the big change that we need in our world. And that's absolutely true, and you know that. So these are different projects, and these are different, let's say, work that my students, this is different work that my students are doing at the secondary level. Now, we get connected with different organizations around the world. This, for example, Formidable Joy is an organization in the United States that works with people in Malawi, right, helping with the water issue, right, trying to make them, let's say, get aware of all the water problems that we have and trying to find solutions to that question. For example, we get connected with Kakuma refugee camp in Kenya. And we work on SDG number 12, right? Working on creating projects on responsible consumption and production in connection with fashion, in connection with meat, in connection with energy, right? Well, here you can see my students working with all the global issues, water, plastics, right? Creating eco bricks. And we take all these to the primary section, and we take all these to the kindergarten, making a continuous curriculum, right? And making awareness, creating awareness, raising awareness on all these very important issues. As I have just told you, the SDGs created the perfect framework from my lessons. Global schools, let's say, global schools plans that I took from my advocacy, created the perfect plan for all my lessons. Becoming a global schools advocate have helped me much and much more to take all this into the school and created this perfect continuum. So as you know, once an advocate, always an advocate. This is something that I am going to continue throughout all my teaching career, the rest that I've got of it. And something that I've managed to do then, not only open the classroom walls, as I told you, with the primary education, but I have broken down my classroom walls. Now I feel that my students are citizens of the world, that they know a lot about the world and that they know how to work for all these very important global issues that are affecting all of us. And something very important as well, I am creating empathy on them. Once they get to know what is happening around the world, they know how we have to work on all that to make a better work for all of us, for the betterment of our world and for all the citizens in it. So I've got connected with the whole world. I create these global connections with all the world. Here we have more. I work for the Climate Action Project, which is a project that is taking place nowadays. And we work with this question of global warming and all the things that we need to do for that. I get connected with countries from all over the world, Latin American countries which face our own reality. But for example, yesterday I was connected with Ukraine, and we had a wonderful lesson on how this question of the war is affecting their soil, is affecting, let's say, all the question of the missiles and all that is affecting their crops and is affecting their food. So, I mean, it was a wonderful lesson for my students. And by that, I'm creating global awareness, right? So here you have more of what I do at school, all the connections that I have made, because I really think that education matters. I really think that we need to take all this kind of education into our lessons. As I told you at the beginning of this talk, at the beginning of my presentation, I live in Argentina. Argentina is a developing country. So we teachers have a hard work to do here to take sustainable education into our lessons. But every day there are more and more teachers here in Argentina that fight hard for this issue, and that we want to make of our students the best citizens possible in the future. So quality education matters. Taking sustainable education into our classrooms matters. The global goals matters the most because they are our perfect framework for all this. So thank you very much. If you want to contact me, you can follow me on Instagram, 21st Century Tools, in which I always promote these ideas of the SDGs. Thank you, Global Schools, for this opportunity. Thank you, Global Schools, for letting me become an advocate. For once an advocate, always an advocate. I'm planning to continue with this. And it's really been a pleasure for me to show you how I have been working with the SDGs all along the schools and in my lessons. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much, Marcela. That's a wonderful presentation. She could just keep going on and on. And I can see everybody at the chat box are so excited to get all of this information and insight from you. And if you look at the chat box, I think some of the resources she talked about has already been shared. And I can already picture some of our questions, which are going to be read and attended to during this question and answer section. Okay, so I want to quickly move straight to our last speaker, that's Simon. Simon is going to be coming up now. Simon is in Kenya. Like I said, sorry, his work in Kenya is from Kenya, but presently based in Sweden at the moment. So Simon will be coming up now, and hand over to you, Simon.
Well, thank you so much. The Global Schools team. And first of all, I want to record my gratitude to the Global Schools family, Amanda, Emmanuel, and company for actually being part of my being present here in Sweden. I came in Sweden 2 months ago, and courtesy of a scholarship by the Swedish government known as the Swedish Institute Scholarship. And I'm studying at Malmö University, Masters in Leadership for Sustainability. As you can see, sustainability is part of what my passions are, and it pans well with the Global Schools Advocacy Program. So I credit the Global Schools Program for playing a bigger part in me getting this scholarship and expanding my networks and experience. So my work in Kenya under the Global Schools Program started in 2021, January, I think, and it was a good ride. And I have a few points that I would like to share with you concerning my advocacy journey. As you can see in the first picture, few students, children who are less than 5 years old, and they are holding some pieces of paper. And on those pieces of paper, the words written there are not very clear, but they're about protecting our planet. So first of all, the best way to integrate SDG in a school setup is to first of all engage the teachers, because you cannot, as an advocate, you cannot implement these activities alone. You will need partners, and the best partner in this case is the teachers. So I held workshops with teachers, first of all, explaining my role as an advocate, what SDGs mean, and our own sphere of influence within our school setup, and little actions that we have to take in order to create a better place, not only for us, but for our children and our children's children. So with that, the teachers go back to their classes, motivated, knowledgeable, and ready to implement most of the things that you talk to them and you learn together with them. So I was so passionate about spreading the SDG agenda on young children because I believe, because of two reasons. One, I believe that it is these young children that are mostly going to be affected, because the biggest challenges right now, including climate change, is affecting the present and it's going to affect the future. And these children represent the present, and they also represent, they have a whole world awaiting for them to explore. And if this world is going to be unsustainable, they'll have nothing to explore. And therefore, the best point at which SDG knowledge should actually be implemented and taught is with these children here. So I create awareness, firstly with the teachers, and I created awareness with the children, telling them in simple terms, because they, in their age and stage, they cannot understand very technical terms. You just let them understand how the world is being affected by the actions that we are making, help them identify, help them answer 3 questions. For example, the first question is, who is affected by the unsustainability within the world? Who is affected? Show them pictures to create empathy. Show them pictures of people suffering, floods, and all those effects of climate change and poverty and hunger and all those, so that when they see those pictures, they can relate with them. And then ask them about whether or not they feel somebody is affected and who is affected. After answering that, let them know who is responsible for all these things happening. And lastly, let them answer a question about who should take action to ensure that all these things are either eliminated completely or they are reduced to a certain extent. So that's what I do. And we do that by letting them participate. You'll be amazed at how knowledgeable these children in their tender age can be. They can identify areas that they have seen within their communities of people that have been affected. They can identify some of the actions that people have taken that have caused a lot of trouble. They can identify so many things. And with that, you can lead them through understanding their role, as little as they are, in addressing some of these world's biggest problems. And let them understand that if we all collectively do not take an active role to address these challenges, they stand a greater risk of being affected more than even us. So the next slide also explains the same thing. We should protect our planet. That is, for your information, that is my daughter, and she's holding that placard there. We should protect our planet. And after that, there's a tree there, and I don't know whether it is visible enough. There's a tree, and there's a tree that is standing, and there's a tree that has been cut down. And by a simple diagram like that, they can explain that when we cut trees, it is unsustainable. When we protect the trees, we are protecting our lives. And with that, they spread these ideas at home, they affect their parents, and that's how we can best spread the sustainability agenda within our schools and especially with young children. Next slide, please. So one of the areas that I found very successful is for each class, you create what we call a global goals chart or an SDG board. They called it an SDG board or a global goals chart. In this chart, you can identify specific goals that you want to address. And as you can see there, we have gender equality, we have quality education, and we have another one that is not visible. And then let the children themselves identify pictures. They can draw, they can cut pictures from wherever it is. You can sort them and let them be the ones to place those cuttings, those pictures, under the SDG they feel that those pictures represent. With that, you are not only ensuring that they fully understand the SDG in question, but they also understand ways through which that SDG can be addressed in different ways in pictorial form. No teacher mounted those pictures. I did not mount those pictures, but it is the children themselves that identified them, cut them, and they mounted them. That is the most, and it is so simple. And from there, these children understand it much better and begin taking actions towards that. So every class has a global goals chart. And these children, what they do, they look around themselves. Whenever they find something that could address a particular goal, they go mount it there and they can discuss amongst themselves. I think that ingrains within themselves the understanding of specific SDGs and how best they can address it. Next slide. So another one of creative ways is what I liked most is perhaps the badges of pride. What I did was I realized that to change the mindset of these children early enough to actually take the Sustainable Development Goals implementation seriously is to first of all change their mindset, values, create within them the values of empathy, the values of curiosity, the values of problem solving, effective communication, and curiosity. So what I did was to identify these specific values that I needed these children to first of all understand and embody. And then in different colors, I designed these badges. We have a badge of curiosity. We have a badge written empathy. We have a badge written problem solving, critical thinking, and all those values. After that, I printed them and then put a string around them, and then first worked with the teachers, told them to enlighten these children about these values and how important they are. And we also educated them that any child who will espouse these values that are so important if we were to address sustainable development and sustainability within our community, within our school, and within our country, and globally at large, we needed to develop these values amongst these children. So after that, these children would look for ways through which they could effectively communicate, express empathy, embody curiosity. And after that, a teacher would identify a child that has expressed that kind of value, and these children will be given a badge of pride. For example, if a child is exposed to a value of critical thinking or problem solving, she identified a problem and she looked for ways through which she could partner with the rest to address this problem. Is it litter collecting? Is it problem of water conservation? Is it a problem of food and empathy or all those things? This child will be given the badge of problem solving, and she will go with this badge at home. And whenever their parent will ask them, what about this? These children will be able to understand and to explain to the parent the circumstances under which she earned this particular pride. And they wore these badges with a lot of pride. That's why I call them the badges of pride. I remember one very specific event where I go to the school and go to the office normally in the morning. And after 5 minutes, I saw these young children coming to me. You can go to the next slide as I explain this kindly. I saw these young children, those ones, the ones you're seeing there, I think they are in grade 1. I saw them coming, heading to my office. And then they knocked the door and they started talking to me. Could we talk to you? Because I run the school, the director of the school. Could we talk to you kindly? I said, yeah, sure, you could. You can talk to me. And then they said, we have an issue. Which issue? Could I listen to it? And they said, oh, okay. One of our friends, before they talked about the friend, they said, today, teacher, we've been learning about empathy, and we would like you to actually be empathetic about some idea that we have. I said, yeah, I'll love to. Then they said that one of our colleagues has stayed away from school for lack of school fees for so many days now. And we would like you to feel empathy so that she can come to school and continue learning, because we feel so bad when she's at home and she cannot afford to pay fees. And then I was so touched by that, and he said, your wishes have been granted, and I will call straight away the mother and let that child come to school in spite of. And that was a defining moment. And these children understood the meaning of empathy. And from that time, these children have expressed that feeling and they feel so good. And when the parent came back to school, she thanked me about that. I said, no, God thank these children. It is the children, it is the colleagues, those children that actually felt empathy for her colleague, for their colleague. And that's why she is not going to pay any fees. She's going to get the education for free because of how empathetic the classmates are. And those are values that these children will grow up with, and it will never leave them. So I think this idea of imparting this knowledge and values, SDG knowledge, these values and skills are so important, especially when these children are growing. Next slide. So another idea is to create what I call school gardening. School gardening is not only about letting food be in a particular school, it's about using that gardening to educate these children about food scarcity, about how we can address zero poverty and no hunger and other related SDGs through simple actions like school gardening. There, I have developed school gardens, not only in this school, but it's also neighboring schools. What I now call school gardening activism, which not only ensures that the affected schools have school gardens and food for the children in the schools, but also teach the children about their responsibility in ensuring that they provide a sense of food security, not only in their school, in their families, but also in the long term for food sustainability in their countries. And that is an idea that has spread in so many schools, not only in one school, but in other schools as well. So when they learn about these issues as young as they are, they affect even their parents, and their parents understand the value of little steps in addressing specific challenges relating to hunger and poverty. Next slide. So that is the same. And one thing I also wanted to say is about also leveraging the community. when the schools are closed, for example, these children, none of these children are from my school. But because I realized that spreading this knowledge does not need to be conducted, not only in schools, but also you can come up with ideas which you can spread these activities within the community. So when the schools close, I have a program where I mobilize school children. You can even go to the next slide as I explain this. I mobilize school children. The next slide, and we shall come back to this one. Next slide. So I mobilize children from around the community, and we conduct several activities from improving their learning outcomes through literacy and numeracy teaching, through school gardening, through tree nurseries, through planting trees, through collecting plastics. And that not only ensures that we become responsible members of the community, but also we spread this SDG agenda not only to the within the school setup, but also to the community. So there, as you can see, I mobilize more than 100 children within the community, taught them about the challenges that we are facing, told them about life below water, and told them that one of the main reasons why we have so many problems about climate and life below water and such like stuff is about the plastic menace. And we say, and they suggested, why don't we go out and collect these plastics, bring them in the schools, and we can donate or even sell to recycling companies, and then provide a cleaner community. So that is one of that picture shows one of the activities that we were conducting in the last holiday, where we went around the community collecting them, and not only collecting them, but also educating these children about their responsibility and the sphere of influence in addressing sustainable development goals. And go back, please, the previous slide. And that is also, we do not do that from the community level, but we also do it as a school. That is something we do after 2 months. We go around the community and we collect those plastics. And it is not a fun event. We don't do that in fact, we go educating the community, saying that they do not need to expect us every 2 months to come and collect these plastics. It is their responsibility to stop it. So, and we let the children understand that plastics can be recycled and plastics can be a menace if they are handled in a way that is not sustainable. So I think that is what I had for now. And one important aspect is to ensure that we leverage the school systems, which have the immense capacity in spreading the sustainability agenda. Because in the school system, we have the parents, we have the teachers, and most importantly, we have young children whose present and future is at risk. If we don't let them understand their influence in addressing the SDGs and addressing the challenges, then we are losing it. That's why I'm very passionate about spreading this agenda within the school setup. And right now in Sweden, one of the projects that I'm doing, I've influenced my colleagues, and we are coming up with projects relating to how do we leverage education institutions from the elementary level to the higher educations to take advantage of their platforms, the education platform, to spread the sustainability agenda. And I'll be very happy to share next time of how the success of that project runs. So I'm very happy to share this, and thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Simon. Thank you so much for giving us that insightful, let's say, lecture or experience about what you have been doing so far, what you have done in your country. I saw a picture of your daughter. That means your family is also actively involved and carrying this work of advocacy with you. That's an awesome one side to see. Okay, so I would want to move to the question section. We have some questions already. I will read some of them, and we'll have our speakers try to answer them. I would say once again, thank you so much for staying this long. I see everybody has been commenting on the chat box, and we're already getting towards the end of the call. So I will read the first question, and any of the speakers that want to answer. I see some of the questions. I think one of them also was directed to a particular speaker or two. Basically, I would read the questions, and one of our speakers would attempt to answer. Then also, okay, let me take the first question. Give the abilities here. Okay. Okay. So the first question. Oh, sorry. Okay, yes, the first question is from. Sorry, I'm not so good with names, but I'll try my best. Okay, I think that's Erasmus from Cameroon. The question says, the questions, it said it's to both speakers. I believe that's Mati and Marcella are the first speakers that spoke. What strategies do you use to adapt the integration or introduction of the SDG lessons to students as a function of their age and the available technology in their environment? So the question was addressed to, okay, you could go there.
Shall I go first, Marcela? Then I leave you also the time for this. I think in the school, the best way I have been able to support this is through Green STEM approach. The Green STEM approach is a STEM education for the SDGs, and it aims to integrate science, technology, engineering, and mathematics with science approach or with non-science topics. And this has been the best way in primary, both and in secondary school, to tackle all the different problems that can be solved with hands-on activities and involves the mathematics. So this is answering also one question about mathematics. This, at least in my school, has been a very important issue, and it is also green because mostly we try to do it outdoors. By doing it outdoors, we connect actually the students to nature, and by connecting to nature, they stay gaining a little bit of a heart to nature. They love nature, and then at the end of all these sessions, they know that they are part of the community of life. So therefore, all these issues, mathematics and all of that, are connected to this green STEM approach. And this is with them, and of course, it's problem solving and inquiry based, hands-on, and also sometimes they turn into project-based learning, which integrate all the different 21st century skills that we are all have been mentioning before, but mainly also integrate the big concept that we have to have the heart, the minds, and the hands together in order for us to really achieve a really valuable and ethical solution to any of the problems we want to solve. That was my part.
Well, in my case, as Marti has said, hands-on approach is the best one to integrate, let's say, these SDGs with little kids, right? For example, some of the projects that Simon has just shown, the idea of making, for example, out of plastic bottles to make power plant pots, okay? Yeah, to be able to plant some sort of, let's say, a small seed or something like that. Yeah, and those are things that the older students, the secondary students take to the little kids, right? Okay, so they go to the classroom and they make them how to do these things, right? Again, I do agree that working on values is the big point. So when they go to the little kids, they all work on the idea that we need to do this because of that. So I mean, the idea of raising awareness and working on values. Our world needs this, yes? So the little kids have to start getting conscious of all these concepts of we need to do this, we need to take action, right? Because we are going to become part of the world in the future, become active part of all this world, and we need to create the solutions our world needs. So working on small issues, call them STEM or hands-on projects, right, will always help. That smallest the issue, it doesn't matter, right? Okay, remember that, as I said before, small actions multiplied by a lot of people will create the big change that we need in this world.
Thank you so much for that wonderful response to that question. I would quickly go to the next question. I hope that response gives the person who has a question satisfaction, but if not, if you want to probably clarify anything or just say you are okay with that, you could also type down the chat box while I go to the next question. Okay, next question is from Natalia. So I'll go ahead and read the question. In my milieu, if I pronounce that correctly, the challenge I faced is to encourage and engage my maths teachers as they are very focused on their continent. Any tips from your schools on how to involve them? So it's questions about how to engage the maths teachers as they are more focused on Africa. Sorry, if that is from Africa, sorry, assuming they are more focused on their country and continent. So how do we engage the maths teachers?
I think they are more engaged on their content. It should be on the content, right?
Oh, sorry. Yes, content. Sorry about that. Content. So I guess she's saying that they are more focused on their content, probably their subject, their teaching, and the like. So how do we engage the maths teachers since they are more engaged or focused on their content? Sorry for that.
So I have just a small response to that. Maybe somebody else would add to that. One thing that I did myself, I'm not the designated teacher, but sometimes I went to class, and depending on different countries and systems, most of them are focused more on the syllabus coverage. The time is little, and they have this little time to focus on completing the syllabus and the exam oriented. Most of these systems are that way, and therefore, when bringing in the SDGs and other alternative things, they feel so overwhelmed. One, they feel more work, extra work, and they kind of are likely to resist. One of the ways that you can go around that is to create an atmosphere where this teacher can still use the same syllabus, teach these children the same syllabus, but in a different way where you can include sustainability issues. For instance, if a math teacher, just an example, if a math teacher is teaching students on a problem such as subtraction, for example, we have a class has 20 children, right? And on a particular day, only 13 children attended class. The question is, how many, or 7 children did not attend class? How many children attended class that day? That's a subtraction question. So you could encourage this teacher to create in a way that you can introduce an aspect of sustainable development goal of gender equality, for example. Instead of this teacher going straight to do division, subtraction and get the answer to be 13, for example, this teacher could ask the children about what some of the reasons, what could be some of the reasons that made these children not come to school. What is the gender what's the gender mix in the children that were absent, for example? If they were 5 girls and 2 boys, what could be the reason? Would it be that the 5 girls remained at home to take care of their younger children while their brothers came to school. That brings in the gender issue, for example, and you address the gender equality inside the mathematics class in a very creative way, and in so doing, addressing SDGs and going ahead and finding the solutions to that. Those are some of the creative ways through which these teachers can engage their students and kill the two birds with one stone. Do them solve the problem, but also in some sustainability. Another way is to let them understand how important the SDG knowledge is to them, the teachers. Everybody has some selfish orientation. How important is it for the teacher himself in the first instance, and then for the others? I think that is when they understand how important it is to them, it will motivate them to actually implement such activities even within their classrooms. Thank you.
I also have another tip. Another way of introducing mathematics or taking mathematics to the lessons is by using infographics, right? By using infographics, you're having a double purpose. You are presenting information about certain global goals, certain SDG, and at the same time, you are working on percentages, you are working on, you can add, subtract, okay, the different things that I mentioned there. So infographics are a good way. And you can find a lot of infographics in connection with the SDGs in, for example, the websites I mentioned, okay, the one on the world's largest lesson on the global goals. They have lots of infographics in connection with what is happening in connection with the SDGs around the world.
Okay,
And I add to Marcela, sorry.
Okay, no problem.
I just
Go
wanted
ahead.
to add to Marcela, just very shortly to add to Marcela, infographics are very relevant. And what we are doing at school is make the children or promote that the children make those infographics. So they connect to the projects that we are doing at school with all the data that we gather, for example, when we are wasting food, how much it is, and then they create these infographics. And then the teachers are the ones who think, oh, this is very interesting. So they take it to the next level and they do more and more deeper mathematics by just the example that the children gave them for the infographics.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much for those interventions, those response. I would also want to mention that the Global School website, we have a lot of curriculums that also help you to channel the SDGs to a subject that you are teaching. So always take a look at those materials too, and I believe they will be helpful in what you want to teach, apart from mathematics. It could be any other subject. And I also want to say, like just the way they have explained, the SDGs are applicable in almost every field. Like mathematics has to do with a lot of numbers and data. You could work with some data with your children, teaching them how to use maths to solve SDG problems. Like this is what I'm kind of commenting because I do some STEM work and STEM has to do with mathematics too. So we try to use maths skills to solve SDG problems, the getting figures, getting data, getting information, plotting them on graphs like Marcela has said, and infographics and the likes. Okay, I hope that it's a good response and you're satisfied with that. I'll go to the next question. And while I'm still very conscious of our time, I'll try my possible best to take as much questions as I can. This question says, I wish to appreciate our speakers. Oh, I don't think I've read this before. Oh, I've read that before, sorry. This question is directly to Marcela. He said, Marcela, some tips on how you merge the curriculums with the SDGs, because here we are also curriculum driven.
Yeah.
So how did you merge the curriculums with the SDGs?
Yeah, excellent question. Here in Argentina, we're also curriculum driven, and it's very hard to introduce other issues. But as I told at the beginning of my presentation, for me it was easy because I'm in a bilingual school. What is fixed is the national curriculum, but not the bilingual one. So for me, being a teacher of English and being the head of the English, sorry. I have too much noise. Okay. So the idea of being a head of English department, I found it very easy because it was not part of the fixed curriculum. Anyway, I have found a way in which teachers can, let's say, introduce the SDGs in a fixed curriculum. Being a teacher of English, we have a great opportunity in our hands, which is a lingua franca, right? The lingua franca can really open thousands doors, yeah? Because, I mean, we have the possibility of connecting them with lots of things from outside our country, right? From outside our local community. For example, you can introduce the SDGs through readers, right? In any language lesson, in any, let's say, school, you have readers that your students have to read as part of the curriculum. Well, set your own reader, right? For example, there is a book called A Long Walk to Water by Linda Sue Park, which is about a girl collecting water in Africa. So by having that book or by reading that book, your students will be connected with clean water and sanitation. And from there, you can open the topic and lead to, let's say, more things in connection with the issue, right? In connection, nowadays, you have a lot of books for kids that are connected with the SDGs, right? A lot of readers that are appearing and that you can connect them with gender equality, or that you can connect them with the question of climate action, right? Films, as I told a few minutes ago, films are an excellent way to introduce the SDGs into our lessons. Documentaries are another very important way. Infographics are another excellent way. There are lots of things that will help you to introduce, to be the, let's say, the door to all the SDGs into the lessons, if they are not set into the national curriculum. You as a teacher you always have to remember that you are teacher of mathematics, teacher of English, teacher of science, or whatever teacher you are, but you are teacher of human beings, and our human beings need the SDGs, need to be connected with the SDGs. Sorry, Emmanuel, that's all.
Yes, thank you so much. And next question actually is like a follow-up to this question. Now that I've talked about merging the SDGs to the curriculum, please always check out the Global School website. There are a lot of resources that some of us might not, may be looking for resources elsewhere, searching the Google, all the search engine, whereby you have information very close to you at the toolkit and even at the website. So always try to go there and you never know what you can find. So now we have a question that seems like a follow-up to this. It said, how can we encourage more teachers to take part in the integration of the SDG in the curriculum? Now you talked about how we can put the merge SDG into the curriculum. How can we encourage teachers to do this? For example, maybe a math teacher or a teacher that feels doesn't need to do that. How do we encourage them? How do we show them the importance of doing this? Marty, would you like to answer that?
Okay, yes. Marcela, shall I answer or you go ahead? Okay, in the case of my teachers, let's say this way, in the case of my teachers, remember we are in a school with 114 nationalities, so we have 60 different languages, and our learning language in the school is English. But we are taking all these issues from the world already into our class. So it's more or less what Marcela is doing in this way. We are doing it in this way because by having all this enrichment from all the different cultures, all the different perspectives and lives, we are able to have that already on hand. Hence, the teachers are always, let's say, having these problems of the world coming to their classes. But there is one way that you can do it by encouraging your teachers to find this hiding curriculum. I have here one little example. I don't know if you can see. This is the curriculum, the curriculum for science, let's say K to 12. I just got the headings here, but then we design a hidden curriculum. And if you invite the teachers to say their word in that hidden curriculum by asking them, not by imposing, is by asking, I have been acting like a submarine. Whenever I know that there is a troubled water, I go like down in like a submarine. Whenever I know this is the time for us to get into it, engage more teachers, I go up and I say, let's come, let's get together, let's do it. And then by having these action days, they see reflected what is happening in other classrooms. So they approach me and they say, what can I do? It's by invitation, motivation that you can make a difference. But if you try to impose on them something, you will gain totally the opposite reaction. You need to invite them. You need to convince them, and you can convince them just in their own classrooms, because all these children are bringing all the different ideas and experiences into our classrooms. Children where there is no water availability, children that come from places where you don't have all these resources, and they share that. So what we try to do it is, we think locally, we have the teachers to think locally, but at the context of our students who are coming from other localities in the world. And in this way, we go into this global citizenship, which is making this connectivity among the peers in a classroom, which are coming from 2 different parts of the world. By invitation, motivation, you achieve much more than by imposing things on a curriculum.
Okay. Thank you so much. Wonderful. I think that's did justice to those questions. And I would like to say that we are coming to an end because we are almost very fast time spent already. So I'll just read one more question. I don't know if, Amanda, am I allowed to take one more question after this, or just read the last one?
Let's do one more question if that's okay.
Okay. So this question is also on curriculum. I'm having a thought that probably we may do a session that's going to focus on just curriculums. I see a lot of questions coming from curriculums and curriculums. So now we have these questions asking, in a case of a school that allows implementation of the structured curriculums, that means only the structured curriculums are allowed. How best can this be done to ensure that the SDGs are taught? So a school that doesn't allow you to use any other curriculums apart from the school curriculums, I guess it's some of these things I mentioned what we are saying earlier on, or just try and see how we can focus more on, shed more light on examples and how they can be able to teach the SDG despite the strict curriculums or way of operation of their school or probably their country. So I don't know if I don't know who wants to answer that. Simon, Marcella, or Mati.
I think most, okay.
Sorry,
Simon is going first.
I just think that the best way to ensure that the SDGs are taken to all the classrooms is if you are the leader, if you are the head of the studies, you have to motivate. You have to show your enthusiasm for them. You have to motivate teachers to do so, and you have to really show that taking action is the best way. If you are not the head and you are just a teacher, motivate your students to take action. Even if you are not, if the SDG is not set into the curriculum, you are going to lead them to take the way, because as I said, it's what we need. We need to take action.
Thank you so much. Okay, Simon.
A quick one. I think most of these systems do not have a specific portion for SDG implementation, of course, but it's the creativity of all of us to find time and create either within the curriculum, the studies lessons, or outside the lesson. We can always implement that. It's about the creativity of the SDG advocate to either create the time of the normal lesson or implement it within the lesson himself, instead of waiting for it to be allowed to be included in the curriculum. Then it won't take place. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I can see on the chat box other I can see Elaine talking about an advocate that also faced the same issue, that the school refused to allow her to take actions on the plan she already had. So I don't know if I can take any more questions, but I want to say that this program, or let's say webinar, is a series of other events. That means we're having such events. I posted some few weeks ago. Look out for the upcoming events. And probably if you miss anyone, look out for the recordings. So when you watch them, or probably when you feel you have questions, you always know where to reach us at the advocate email. Send your questions, or you could even put some of those comments in your toolkit, the KPI. So you put them in KPI, you always read those things. And I know some of you always get a response from us about the work you're doing and the like. So always feel free to ask questions after now, and somebody will always be there to answer and attempts to give answers to most of our questions. So in the issues of curriculum, I would like to add that most times, I just want to add this, that most times, just like Simon has said, you may not find a school that have all the curriculums for SDG there. That's why we have resources for you in the toolkit. That's why we have resources for you in the website. And we even have the SDG Academy, which is also part of the SDSN, I believe so. Also having a lot of resources you can also use. So basically, there is so much resources online, and even in the the Facebook group. If you have any questions, post there. And more teachers, more mentors will also give you directions on where you can get more resources. So I want to say that when you have issues like that, for example, in our schools years in Nigeria, and where I'm based, I know that most schools also have a curriculum which you must follow and the likes. Most times you don't really need, like there we used to have okay, when I was advocating one, so that I can give some of these examples. We used to have a time where we had to print out the forms, the pledge, and we print them out, and you have a pledge that says, what action do you want to take? I'm going to take this action, I'm going to take this action, I'm going to take this action. So each of those actions, there's something you can do in your school. You'll probably teach you the LH for 5 minutes before your class starts. You try to explain it during your course, like we talked about. To the maths, you try to use data. It could be biology, it could be social science, it could be health education, it could be any subject. You may not need to teach the energy fully for the whole class period. It could just be 5 minutes before you start your class. It could be like a storytelling section before your class starts. It could be middle, like, so sometimes, even right now, I still teach children coding and stuff like that. We have some things we do before the class starts, catch fun. Like we play some game called under Kahoot. We have a program called Kahoot with IT in the online class. Throw some fun questions and all of that, so that they can be able to do something outside the class activity. So I think I see Amanda, and I want to hand over to you now before we end.
Thank you, everyone, for your wonderful presentations today. I'm not going to take any more of your time with announcements. You'll see them over email since we're already over time. But if I could just take 30 more seconds to take a quick picture, we would really appreciate it. So please turn on your cameras or turn off your cameras if you want or don't want to be in the picture. And I will take it in about 3 seconds here. 1, 2, 3. And then I have to go to the next screen. 1, 2, 3. And the final screen. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And please look out for announcements with upcoming events and things that are happening in November. Have a great and wonderful afternoon, evening, or morning, wherever you are in the world. Bye, everyone.
Okay, bye. You could turn off your camera to say bye, or just type bye on the chat box. Thank you so much for joining.
Bye.
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 Simon, Marty, Marcella, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Great job.
Yeah. Hi guys, that was wonderful.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you for the insights. Thank you.
Bye.